Let's step into the Victorian Age, one of the richest and most influential periods in English literature. The Victorian novel, spanning much of the 19th century, became the dominant literary form, a mirror reflecting industrial society, morality, and the growing complexity of everyday life. And right at the heart of it all stands Charles Dickens, the most famous Victorian novelist. His gift for strong characterization made him beloved across classes, and his blend of humor, sentiment, and satire kept readers eagerly turning pages. His very first novel, The Pickwick Papers, published in 1836-37, became an overnight success. That's a line often asked in exams. It was serialized monthly, each installment bringing new twists and characters, keeping the reading public hooked. Dickens didn't just entertain, he exposed the social injustices of his time, from child labor to poverty. Novels like Oliver Twist and Great Expectations capture both the energy and the cruelty of industrial England. His later works like Bleak House and Our Mutual Friend grow darker, exploring law, corruption, and moral decay. Meanwhile, Dickens had a brilliant rival, William Makepeace Thackeray, the satirist of middle-class society. His masterpiece, Vanity Fair, published in 1848, paints a vivid picture of greed, ambition, and social climbing. Then come the Bronte sisters, who brought the Gothic and the psychological together in unforgettable ways. Wuthering Heights 1847 by Emily Bronte dives into passion and revenge, while Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre explores independence, morality, and class. Anne Bronte's The Tenant of Wildfell Hall follows a woman who defies societal expectations, an early echo of feminist thought. As the century progressed, realism deepened. George Eliot's Middlemarch, 1872, became the great realist novel, examining marriage, ambition, and provincial life with incredible psychological depth. Thomas Hardy, on the other hand, turned to the countryside. His novels like Tess of the D'Urbervilles reveal how industrial modernity clashed with traditional rural life. Elizabeth Gaskell, another key figure, and yes, her name is often asked in exam, portrayed the working class experience in novels like Mary Barton and North and South. Alongside her, writers like Anthony Trollope, George Meredith, and George Gissing, all asked in exam, dissected Victorian manners, morality, and the class system. In short, Victorian fiction became the perfect vehicle for exploring a rapidly changing world, a world of urban growth, social reform, and human struggle. That link between literature and social change is a key idea, and it's been directly asked in exams. Now, as we move toward the end of the 19th century, a new figure begins to appear, the New Woman. The term itself was coined by Irish writer Sarah Grant, and yes, that's been asked in exam. Soon after, English writer Ouida used it in response, and Henry James helped popularize it to describe the independent, educated, and self-reliant women who were redefining society. The New Woman defied traditional gender roles. She sought education, independence, and control over her own choices, including how she dressed, where she went, and whether she married. Even the invention of the bicycle became a symbol of her newfound mobility and freedom. Writers like Ibsen gave this movement dramatic life. His play A Doll's House shocked audiences when Nora walked out on her marriage, while George Bernard Shaw's Mrs. Warren's Profession, also asked in exam, questioned the hypocrisy of moral and economic systems that oppressed women. Earlier novels like Maria Edgeworth's Belinda and Elizabeth Barrett Browning's Aurora Leigh had already begun exploring female independence, both of which have been noted in exam questions. Later, the movement found even more powerful voices in writers like Olive Schreiner, Sarah Grant, and Mona Caird, who wrote boldly about marriage, sexuality, and selfhood. The New Woman also entered popular fiction, from Charles Reade's A Woman Hater to H.G. Wells's Anne Veronica. Both have appeared in exam papers. Even Gothic and modernist texts joined the discussion. In Bram Stoker's Dracula, characters like Mina and Lucy embody male anxiety about women's changing roles. Across the Atlantic, Kate Chopin's The Awakening offered one of the earliest portrayals of female desire and social rebellion. Her heroine's struggle for autonomy mirrors that of Flauber's Emma Bovary, both women trapped by a world that refuses to understand them. By the 22nd, the flapper replaced the Victorian New Woman, marking a new phase of female independence. But the New Woman movement didn't vanish, it evolved into the first wave of feminism shaping both literature and history. And yes, that connection to early feminism has been asked in exam. Alright, let's look at two important 19th century writers who approached society from very different directions. Benjamin Disraeli, the politician novelist, and Elizabeth Gaskell, the social realist. Let's start with Benjamin Disraeli. Now, most people remember Disraeli as a conservative prime minister, but he was also a novelist, essayist, and something of a celebrity in his own time, known for his wit, fashion, and flair. He served as prime minister for nearly 7 years and worked to improve education and labor conditions through his policies. Disraeli's early life was far less glamorous. He was educated at small private schools and at just 17 joined a law firm. But he wanted a sensational career. He dabbled in South American mining speculation in the 1820s, lost money, and ended up in debt for years. Still determined to make his mark, he persuaded the famous publisher John Murray to launch a newspaper called The Representative, and yes, that's been asked in exam. Unfortunately, the paper failed, and the two men fell out badly. To make matters worse, Disraeli's first novel, Vivian Grey, published in 1826, included a thinly veiled criticism of Murray himself. That scandal actually made him famous. Vivian Grey appeared anonymously, credited only to a man of fashion again, something that's been asked in exam, but people quickly guessed it was Disraeli. The first volume caused a sensation in London society. Reviewers called it brilliant and audacious, but after readers learned it was partly autobiographical, there was a backlash. The novel went through several versions by 1853. It had been heavily censored, losing much of its original sparkle. Critics like Wendy Burton even noted that it lost its youthful charm in those edits. Still, Vivian Grey remains the book that launched Disraeli's literary career, and every fact we just mentioned has been tested in exam. But his most important literary contribution came later with Sybil, or The Two Nations, published in 1845, the very same year as Engels's The Condition of the Working Class in England. This timing has been asked in exam. Sybil explores the deep divide between rich and poor in industrial England, what Disraeli famously called the two nations. It was his way of addressing what Victorians called the condition of England question. Through fiction, Disraeli portrayed the struggles of factory workers, the injustices of class, and his own belief that government should heal those divides. Now, while Disraeli wrote as a politician moralizing through fiction, Elizabeth Gaskell wrote as a compassionate observer of human life. Born in 1810, Gaskell was the daughter of a Unitarian minister, and yes, her full name, Elizabeth Cleghorn Gaskell, has been asked in exam. She married a clergyman and became deeply involved in social work, which gave her first-hand knowledge of working-class life, the very subject that shaped her fiction. Her first novel, Mary Barton, A Tale of Manchester Life, published in 1848, was a sensation. It's often asked in exam for both title and year. The novel exposes the suffering of industrial workers in Manchester and gives voice to the poor. The story follows John Barton, an honest labourer who loses his job and becomes a bitter union man. When violence erupts, he ends up involved in a murder, and it's Mary, his daughter, who helps to clear an innocent man, Jem Wilson, of the crime. In the end, Mary and Jem emigrate to Canada, symbolizing a search for moral and social renewal. That murder subplot and Mary's act of saving Jem have both been asked in exam. Gaskell's other major works show her incredible range. There's Cranford, a charming portrait of small-town life, published between 1851 and 53, asterisk. Then North and South, 1854 to 55, which explores industrial conflict through the eyes of Margaret Hale, definitely a favorite in exams. She also wrote Wives and Daughters, An Everyday Story, her last and unfinished novel, serialized from 1864 to 66, another one often asked. Her biography, The Life of Charlotte Bronte, 1857, was one of the first literary biographies ever written, and interestingly, left out some of the scandalous details about Bronte's private life, a detail that examiners love. Elizabeth Gaskell's style combines deep empathy with social critique. She saw the working poor not as statistics but as human beings. In contrast, Disraeli used fiction to dramatize class conflict from a political lens. Together, they represent two sides of the same coin. Disraeli, the politician writing about social reform, and Gaskell, the social observer giving voice to those reforms in real human stories.